My goal for today is that you have a really solid foundation and understanding of everything kind of you need to be able to start to translate that message behind your pain and disease. So my goal is by the end, you will have something that you can start to use to bring some power, some understanding, and hopefully a big shift in your ability to be able to really understand what your body is telling you and begin to heal. So as people are coming in, let me see what time it is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep rolling. I'm going to go ahead and go. And then as people come in, please feel free to introduce yourself as well. Um, so a little bit about me. This is a big old long thing. The main thing that you probably need to know, I guess, is that I'm known for being able to translate the message behind anybody's pain and disease anywhere. I've done it all around the world in different languages and all kinds of things with a translator. And that I can do that in about a minute. So I can literally translate the message behind anybody's pain and disease in about a minute. Most people think it's magic. And yes, I do have some medical intuition or intuition, certainly is part of it. But in reality, it's actually this body decode process that I'm going to be showing you today, which I now certify practitioners, coaches, and therapists in the body decode and flow method. So now I can literally say that this is teachable. Anybody can actually learn how to do what I'm going to show you today and use it for yourself to be able to translate that message very quickly. Maybe not in 1 minute, but certainly in 3. And I think that's a huge relief for most people because, I mean, for most of us, we've been spending ages, and I know so many people who have spent so much time, so much money. I think the most common thing I get when people come to me is, gosh, I've been working on this for 12 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, and I can't get an answer. I've been to doctors, I've been to nurses. And let me just say, I'm very pro science and pro, please listen to your medical team. I work with medical teams in conjunction with them all the time. But that said, a lot of times they can't get to the root. They might get the symptom, you might be able to deal with it with treatments and things like that, and that's great. But are we getting to the root cause? Are we getting to the thing that can help us to heal our whole lives and make everything better? And that's where I work. And so I'd say the most common thing I see is people coming from all over the place, dealing with years and years of suffering. And so it's pretty cool if you can learn how to do this for yourself and maybe be able to understand it in the moment or within those like first couple minutes, then you bring so much power and control back to yourself because being in pain, having disease feels inherently out of control. And so what I will say is now, after about 17 years of validating this, this is now, my systems have now been validated as master's level equivalent. I have presented at scientific conventions now. And so I now can confidently say that this is something you can replicate as well for yourself. Okay, so let's get into it. So a little bit of background about me. How did I even come up? Like, how did I even end up doing this work? So many years ago, I was about 24, 25. I was really overworked. I was working very, very hard in a family business, actually. And of course, I was already a perfectionist. I was already like trying to overachieve constantly. And of course, being in a family business, a lot of times, right, you work even harder because you want to make sure that that business goes well because you care about the people involved. And so I was working, this is not an exaggeration, some weeks 80 hours, some weeks more because we were working around the clock a lot of times with hospitals, actually large health systems. So you sometimes had to be on third shift working with and talking to the nurses. And I worked myself into the ground. You know, quite honestly, I did not have boundaries. I didn't even know what boundaries were, quite honestly. I didn't think I could have boundaries. And all of that ended up with, on top of it all, I actually decided for God knows what reason, well, I do know why, it was a good cause, to start to train for a marathon. Now, let it be said, I'm not a runner. But the cause was to raise money for kids going through leukemia. And I thought, hey, that's amazing. So I started to do that. And so I obviously be training and I started getting this really bad stitch in my side, or what I thought was a stitch. And so I just kept running through it, as you do. And again, not being a very experienced runner, that's what I just figured I needed to do. And then eventually one night it was so bad that I was like doubled over and I could not keep going. So at that point, I thought I better go see the doctor. And the doctor took blood, did the tests, came back saying I had mononucleosis, which didn't make a lot of sense. I was married. I'd already had mono in college, supposedly, and you're supposed to not be able to get it twice. And at that point, he told me, your spleen is 3 times the size it should be. And you are going to have to take the next six weeks off and rest, because if something happens and your spleen bursts, and it could burst, you will die. Now, you would think I would have listened to that, but because I was so convinced that no one else could hold all of the things that I could hold or deal with at that point, I only took a half a day off, which was really dumb. I'm going to be real honest. I was like real dumb. And I continued working. Needless to say, I got sicker and sicker and ended up finally like so exhausted that I could work for like maybe an hour and then I was just down. And for an energetic person like me, it was just, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what happened. I went to the doctor and he now said, hey, you've got chronic fatigue. You're going to be dealing with that for the rest of your life, and it's incurable. And I'm not great with listening to authority, to be honest. And I finally thought to myself, I think I probably need to listen to the actual words that are coming out of my mouth, how I'm describing this, and what's going on. Because intuitively, I've always been a pattern seeker. And there was a pretty obvious pattern about the subconscious beliefs that I had about needing to always be on, no boundaries, take care of everybody else to the point of almost killing myself. And the disease that I now had manifested, that was now in my body, and all the overwork that I was doing, I knew had to be a connection. And I realized I kept telling the doctor, my circuits are blown. I feel like my circuits are blown. And that's literally what happened. My circuits, if we really think about it, it was like, poof, right? Chronic fatigue, your circuits are blown. Too much was plugged into me all the time. At that point, I thought to myself, if I could get what the connection is, there has to be an unconscious connection here. And if I could figure out what that was, then probably I could heal myself. And maybe I could figure out how to use that same information to help others. And so at that point, what I started to do was go completely crazy, as I do. I am one of those people that when I get a question in my brain, I must know the answer. I can't rest until, can't rest until I absolutely know the answer. So I just started to ask all of these kinds of questions, like, why is one area of your life like so easy and happy and seemingly stress-free, and then another area of your life is like constant problems and drama and issues? And why does it seem like there's health issues in certain areas of the body that seem like they correlate to maybe those exact same patterns? And could there be a connection? Is there a connection between the subconscious stuff we have? And could we use that connection in a very real, sort of scientific, replicable way to be able, and like reliable way to be able to actually retune what's going on inside ourselves and radically change not just our lives and the kinds of things that we're experiencing and the patterns we have, but also our health. And that's what was driving me crazy. My husband actually started calling me the nutty professor because I was reading everything I could get my hands on that I thought might have a connection. We're talking psychology, neuropsychology, religious tradition, like religious documents and all of that kind of thing, looking for just truths, anatomy and physiology, Eastern medicine. I became a Reiki master. I did all kinds, and finally quantum physics, which ended up being the final thing, right? And I had this huge aha moment. Now that aha moment looks a lot like this. Now this is the 7 stations of the body, as I call them. And what I realized is that our minds are not just really one subconscious mind. They are, but if we imagine sort of like how white light is the combination of all colors, and if we send it through a prism, it separates, right? The same is true of our minds. So when we have subconscious beliefs that are in our minds, they are sort of separated into 7 what I call stations. Now, if you have positive and flowing beliefs in one station of your mind, body, and life, you will have flowing positive experiences in that particular station. You will also have pretty easy health, low chances of health issues. If, on the other hand, you have unconscious beliefs, and again, be very specific, they're unconscious, you are not doing this on purpose. If you have unconscious beliefs that are coded in that are limiting, that are problematic, that are not health affirming, in a certain area of your mind, body, and life. And we will go into these in great detail later on in a little bit here. But in general, if you have a bunch of limiting beliefs in a certain station, it's a lot like if you had your radio tuned, which is why I've got the little remote control there. If you have your radio tuned to a certain favorite station, let's say the rock station, and it's like maybe that's, favorite number one, and you get in the car and you're like, I want to listen to the jazz station. And you hit number one, you're automatically going to tune into rock music. Now, you're not probably going to yell at yourself because you did that. You're going to look and go, oh, I hit one, I meant two, which is the jazz station, right? It's not a big deal. But in our lives, we don't consciously know that's what we're doing. And so we might have what I call favorite presets or frequencies that are set in, let's say, station two, which happens to be our one-on-one relationships and our ability to like birth creative things. And because of that, we might consciously say, I am never dating a person like that again. And then you go out into the world and it's as if you hit that preset station, and who do you find to date the next time? The same exact person. So what's happening is we just literally are recognizing and matching this unconscious programming is matching what we're looking at in the world. And that may well relate also to things like low back pain or hip pain or ovarian cysts and things like that. Again, we'll talk about more of that in just a second, but I want to give you a basic idea. This is what it looks like. That's what we're working on. All right. As I say, the pain or disease you're dealing with is a message about what's off in your mind, body, and life. I want to be real specific. Your body, in my experience, and again, I've worked with people around the entire world, your body is trying to help you thrive. What I find is that you will have a pattern of negative or indeed sometimes traumatic experiences. You have a certain pattern of them. And if you catch it at that point, you can kind of do some healing work. You can do some really specific underlying unconscious belief work to shift that frequency. And then usually, in my experience, what I see is that does not progress or develop into pain or disease. If you don't catch it there, which most people don't because we don't know to look for it, and that's where like the flow method stuff, we'll talk about that in a second, comes in. If you don't catch it there, then what usually happens is your body sort of starts sending messages the only way that it can, or the only way it knows how, which is in pain and disease. And I usually tell people that learning the language of the body, learning these different little cues and things that the body is sending is a whole lot like learning a foreign language. So if you learned, I took French in high school, and the first day, my French teacher came in and started just babbling at us in French. And I was like, I have made a huge mistake. I am going to fail this class. That is that, right? I had no idea what she was talking about whatsoever. Now, by the end of the year, though, I had learned, bonjour means hello. I learned how to translate it into something, a way I could understand. And by the end of the year, she came back and she apparently did that exact same thing she had said to us at the beginning of the year. And I understood it. I wasn't great in French, but I understood it. I got it, okay? It's the same thing. When we learn how the language of the body, how it's talking to us, then you literally learn the skill for your life, and it never turns off. You will now understand instantly, oh, that pain in my shoulder means XYZ. This specific thing means that. You will literally know that, okay? Okay, I always want to say this. This is really important. I see people in the healing space, and they're kind of give people sometimes the impression that like somehow the disease you are dealing with or the pain you're dealing with is somehow your fault. I'm going to be real clear with you. You are not consciously creating disease. Like, even if you're a hypochondriac, you are not consciously creating disease. What you can do is consciously understand the message. Like I was just talking about, when you learn how to translate it, you are consciously able to understand the message, okay? And that helps you to begin to heal. But please understand, it is not your fault that you have some sort of pain and disease. It is not your fault if you are not healing from that pain and disease. It is not your fault if you tried a zillion things and it's still not working. Not your fault. This is all at an unconscious level. We're going to work there today, okay? And so, as I just said, sometimes what happens is you catch it at that sort of negative pattern thing. We can stop the pain and disease progression from my experience. If you don't catch it there, then the body starts speaking and we have to listen. Okay. Okay. So now we're going right into the 7 steps of the body decode translation process. I do recommend if you happen to have the ability to take quick notes, it's kind of helpful. And so let's go in. Step 1. So the first thing we want to look at every single time is what side of the body is this showing up on? Now, the side of the body will tell you pretty specifically whether, like, kind of who is involved, who is at the underlying level of whatever is going on. So the side of the body can be like when you're looking at the left side of the body, it usually has to do with a female in your life, or someone who's female presenting, or in the very, excuse me, it's Denver and it is so dry, so I have to apologize. And I decided to put incense on today. It's a little bit much. So the left side, or it could be in a sort of small amount of cases, if you can't find who the female is that might be at the root of this, usually it's like a conflict or a wound or something with a female, then, and you happen to be female, it might be you and having something to do with blocking the more feminine energy of receiving, of allowing, okay? Now, if it's on the right side of the body, then it's going to be more a male or a male presenting person in your life, male energy person in your life. Again, if it happens to be like in the very small amount of time you happen to be male and you cannot figure out a male that could be at the root of this by the time we go through this whole thing, then it could be you and you sort of blocking either a lot of self-criticism or blocking your ability to move forward. Now, what if it's all over the body? Now, when I see things that are all over the body, that really has to do with an overall sense that you are just not particularly safe in the world. If it is something, we'll talk about that in a minute, but if it's something like an immune disease, that is what I call station 1, and it has to do with families not feeling protected in the family, not feeling protected in the groups, not feeling supported. And so autoimmune stuff always has a station 1 group or family component. There's a reason, because our immune system, if you think about it metaphorically, is a lot like when we used to live in tribes, and living in a tribe, we were supposed to be protected by our tribe from things like coming at us. And when that doesn't work, so our families now should be that. We should be protected within our families. But the people that I see usually with autoimmune diseases have oftentimes had really hard childhoods, dysfunctional childhoods, abusive childhoods, unfortunately, sometimes. And that will show up there. If we're dealing with stuff that's all over the body, and we'll talk about that in a minute too, that's more like neurological or muscular, that kind of thing, then usually you are looking at sort of a real disconnect with feeling safe just within like the universe and our world as we know it. So it's like the larger group is what's happening. Different things like psoriasis all over the body or eczema all over the body, those can be different things as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So side of the body. So if you're taking notes and you have something going on, certainly jot that down. Step 2, what I need to look at here, and here's what's really cool. If you understand the staging or how long the issue you've been dealing with it, you can usually date when the sort of root issue happened to within a pretty tight period of time. Sometimes it's really tight. Sometimes it's like unbelievably tight. Sometimes it's, a little bit like 6 months. So what you want to look at is how long has that issue been affecting you? And if you look at how long the issue is affecting you, you're going to be looking at, depending on the severity of it, as well as another component that goes into it. If it's something that's like low level, it's been affecting you for like 6 weeks, then you'd be looking at a pretty tight time frame. You'd be looking at maybe something happened about 8 weeks prior. If it's something that's a lot more intensive, a lot more painful, or in fact, even something that's really life-threatening, you may be looking for 3 years prior to all the way to a root in childhood. Childhood abuse oftentimes will show up later on in life by dealing with similar patterns or triggers that happen around them. Um, when we look at staging, a lot of diseases are staged. Obviously, cancer is one of them, but many different diseases are staged. When we look at the staging of a disease, it's really interesting because you can get pretty, again, tight on when the actual root issue happened. So, stage one usually is a pretty tight timeline. You're looking like within the last 6 months-ish that something has happened. If you're at something like a stage four that's, really intense or obviously life-threatening, then again, you're looking at like 3 years to all the way again, root from childhood. Usually when I see something that's that intense, that's like a stage four or a like stage four kind of severity, we are looking at either a really massive trauma that has happened within that person's life, or we are looking for real long-term roots, that we are looking for a root that's usually within their life about 4 years prior to, again, a root usually in childhood. Triggers are also really interesting. So if you can't there's no real, like the timeline doesn't make a lot of sense and the staging isn't making sense, then it's probably a trigger. Now, what is a trigger? The trigger is something that is an anniversary, oftentimes, of something that has happened at that same time of year, or even the anniversary of a date, like the date of the death of a loved one, for instance. And you won't consciously remember. So I always say, like, the subconscious never forgets, the conscious mind will forget. Like, you'll be going along la-di-da in your life, and suddenly something will hit you and be like really overwhelming. I will give you a quick example. I do a lot of work with like cancer support communities, and I was doing a talk one time, and I had this lovely older couple in front of me in this talk. And the woman said, "Hey, I had a situation and it came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they were out for their normal 2-mile walk. They did it every day. And all of a sudden she literally it was like hit in the chest, could not breathe, could not take a full breath in. And obviously ambulance was called, thought she was having a heart attack. All these tests were run, absolutely nothing medically wrong. And I said, okay, when did it happen? And it was like December 7th-ish. And I'm like, well, did something happen that sort of like hit you in the chest and took your breath away? Maybe around Thanksgiving, which if you're here in the US, that's like end of November. Again, when something hits that quick, you're looking for a pretty tight timeline. And she's like, no, I can't think of anything. And then all of a sudden I said, well, what about a year before at this exact time of year? And I will never forget, she turned and looked at her husband and was just absolutely stunned. And she said, oh my God, it happened on the exact anniversary of a year ago when her husband had surgery for his cancer, and she was absolutely terrified. Her breath was taken away. She could hardly get a full breath in. But like you do as you're a caregiver, she went right into caregiver mode, never processed all the fear and the stress and the trauma and all that stuff from that year before. Her conscious mind forgot, her subconscious did not. It got to like December 7th and went, oh, you got to process this. And I'm going to kind of make this be something you have to process. Okay. So that's what you want to look at. I had it happen to me a few years ago. Unfortunately, we had to let our beloved little 16-year-old Cairn Terrier go. He unfortunately had a very fast-moving cancer. We just basically couldn't do anything else. We were within like a week. And he passed over on June 17th. And then a year later, I was a busy mom with a little baby. And all of a sudden, I was hit with just absolute waves of sadness, so overwhelmed with sadness. And I could not figure out what was wrong with me. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, it's June 17th. Completely forgot. I consciously forgot. My body remembered. My subconscious mind remembered. So that's what you're looking at on staging. So what we're looking at here, guys, is you want to take each step of this and you're putting each step down. By the time we're done with all 7 steps, you usually have a really specific message that your body is sending you. Okay. So if you have something, you've figured something out here, drop that down. Step 3, what you want to do is you're actually identifying or describing the pain or the illness. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Is it a lump? Is it a bump? Is it a rash? What color does it look like? What words would you use to describe it? Now, in this step, what I recommend that you do is literally write out all your symptoms, how they feel. So if you have a pain, what does that pain feel like? Is it stabbing? Is it aching? Is it dull? Is it nagging? If you have a lump, is it a tumor? Is it a cyst? Is it soft? Is it hard? If it's a rash, what does it look like? Is it psoriasis where it's like a, thick, scaly, scabby thickness? Or is it something that's like really angry looking, really red, really, what does it look like? I really recommend actually writing all this out. What I will say is that oftentimes you will be shocked at how literal we are in describing our pain or disease and how literal that is on what is actually happening. I think I talked about if you're on my mailing list, I think I sent this one. I don't remember. That sometimes it's so literal. I feel like people don't really need me. But I was at a retreat and there was this sweet little grandma sitting in the front. She literally ran a Montessori school. Like she was the sweetest human being. And she all of a sudden raised her hand and said, "Hey, can I ask about this?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And she shows, and she basically flips us the bird. And for anyone overseas, if you put your middle finger up here in the United States, it means you're quite angry at the person. You're mad. This is kind of a crude way of saying I'm really mad. So this being shown from this little sweet grandma was shocking for everybody there. And it was on both hands. So I knew it was male and female. I said, "Well, how long have you had this?" And she had it since about Christmas time. So I was like, okay, well, what happened at Christmas time where you were really mad at a female and a male in your life? You felt like you couldn't express that. And so now it's sort of stuck in your finger and there you are. It's just like trying to express it for you. And she looked at me and apparently her son and daughter had had a massive fight on Christmas, almost like a family splitting kind of event. She was furious at both of them, did not say anything to either of them. And then her middle fingers got stuck in the upright position. And what was really interesting is the body, oftentimes, once we do this process and we are able to decipher the exact message the body is sending, oftentimes it's like the body is like, "Oh, I got the message across." And you'll see, usually in a session, if I'm working with somebody on an individual session or in a group thing, I know I got the message right when the pain either decreases to a really low level or goes away completely in like that session or in that hour. Okay. And the same is true for any of these, like even movement disorders. We'll talk about that in a minute, those kinds of things. So about an hour later, she put her hands back up and she went like this, and both fingers were able now to bend. Now, does that mean she was totally healed? No, she had some things we needed to work on and for her to process some of the anger and to have a game plan for handling that, dealing with her kids going forward, so that the healing, that message not only landed, but actually then she was able to do something about it to let her body know, "I got the message and I'm healing. I'm handling this now." So that's what you want to look at. You want to look at what's exactly going on, what's going wrong. I'll give you a few of these. There's so many. I mean, like, because we have however many kinds of different pains and however many kinds of rashes, and I can't go into all of that today, but I'll give you a few. Like if you have an aching pain, that tends to be heartache, heartbreak. And again, we say these things like we don't know we're using the language, but we'll say, "Oh, my heart, I ache for that. Like I ache for this person. I have a heartache or a heartbreak," right? If you have something like, I had somebody recently who had pink eye just in one eye, so it was a right eye, so upset with a male, seeing red. She was literally seeing red. Her eye was red. She was seeing red. I've had people who like they have their eyes just continuously water. And it's like their body is trying to get sadness out, express sadness that they are trying to either not deal with or they're trying really hard to ignore or just hold in. I've had people with really angry looking rashes. That's an interesting one. I had a lady a few years ago that she had something called geographic tongue, which I've never heard of in my life, but it was these white patches on her tongue and they moved all over the place. So they move from right to left, they move in the middle. And white tends to be numbness, that you've been told you've got to, like, either something hurt so bad that you went numb, or that it's like a shock, like tamp that down completely. And she had been told that she should not use her voice to speak, that there was a lot of different things that had happened where she was told to literally like shut down her voice. And so she started to notice, she was a massage therapist, she started to notice where this would be showing up and moving. And it would have to do with, was it a male she was dealing with? Was it a female she was dealing with? Which was pretty wild. So that's what you're looking at. So jot that down, describe your pain, describe your illness exactly. Now, step four, when the part of the body is functioning normally, this is where we look into movement disorders. What's happening, or what's happening within the body? What's going wrong in the body? And so then it's like you're looking at what's its purpose, what's its function, what is physically going wrong. That's going to tell you a ton. So the example I give here is like in a muscle spasm. Okay, so when you have a muscle spasm, what's happening? The muscle is contracting violently. Okay, and even in doing that, you can almost see what it is, see what's going on. There's a fear response, there's a holding on. It's like when we have like if you were in a, usually I'll get an image like this with muscle spasms, but if you were on a boat and it was rocking back and forth and you needed to grab on to like that center pole, what's it called, mast, and because you're rocking and you're going to fall off the boat and you would be gripping on it, you're afraid. And so when you look at that, it usually has to do with I am holding, I am gripping, I am trying to hold this together. Sometimes it has to do with, if it's low back, it might be trying to hold together support for yourself creatively or with a one-on-one relationship. Um, if the gripping, you can have muscle spasms all over the place. Like in the calf, it could be about you moving forward and that there's a person in your family or group that keeps telling you it's going to be, you're not going to move forward in a positive way, or you need to be afraid of it. You can have all kinds of different interesting things going wrong with again, the functioning of something. So you have, for instance, I had a guy, I was actually at the Science of Consciousness conference and I was presenting this work. And this guy who was the mayor of like some town in like Ottawa or someplace in Canada. And he came up to me and he was a total character, like big cowboy hat, whatever, a big booming voice. And he came up and he's like, I don't know if I believe all this. I said, no problem. Like, honestly, I love questions. I like skeptics. I like people questioning things. I think that's smart. So I was like, hey, no problem. And then he kind of looked at me. I could tell he wanted to tell me something. And he said he was having a ton, his wife was standing next to him. He was having a ton of gallbladder issues. He was having a lot of pain, like a real gripping and stabbing pain on his left side. And it was like constant. He was watching everything he was eating and they looked at, there wasn't really a medical issue, so to speak. And I said, well, there's a female in your life that you were like the gall of her. You were like really mad, like who the hell does she think she is kind of thing. And he burst out in like this huge bellowing laugh. And he was like, his wife looked at him and just started laughing, looking at him. And he said, oh my God, it's my mom. And I literally say all the time, the gall of her. I was like, there you go. And interestingly, I saw him over the days of that conference. Every time I saw him, he'd go, the gall of her. He'd yell at me. But he also did share with me that actually he hadn't had gallbladder pain after we kind of translated it. So we did talk about some steps for him to be able to heal that, but that was kind of an interesting one there. Step 5. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. Let me make sure. Okay, good. I'm doing pretty well on my thing. On my time here. Sorry, my daughter is on her first 2-day camping trip, and I just got an update from her teacher saying she got to the museum they're supposed to be going to. Yay. You're never not a mom, right? Step 5. So what we're going to go is a little bit deeper into is these flow stations. So as we've translated, all of these little pieces can be super literal. And then once we go into where this is showing up in your body, this is going to tell you real specifically, what is this unconscious? What is this underlying root? What is happening? So we're going to go into that pretty deeply right now. Again, I recommend if you can take notes, jot some things down so you can remember. Well, you will get a replay too. But station 1 is the commanding influence of groups. Now, station one is from kind of the tailbone down, is what we're looking at. Station one deals with all of the groups in your life. So it's your individual relationship with the groups in your life, right? So it also has to do with it has to do with whether groups in your life were safe and supportive and protective and took care of you. And if they weren't, you may have some unconscious beliefs there that are quite limiting and undermining you. Also, it has to do with, are you able to feel supported in the ways that you move through the world? Are you able to feel stable and rooted as you move through the world? And again, a lot of that has to do with these really specific group issues. As I said, immune system happens to be one of the things here. If you were bullied, if you had sort of a toxic or narcissistic family dynamic growing up, it's a really good chance you've got some station one stuff going on. But again, it can show up in different ways. So as you can see here, it deals with these specific body parts and energetic issues. So what you're looking at here is, as I said earlier, the immune system, legs, feet and toes, knees, ankles, your rectum, bones, base of spine, and your tailbone. A really interesting one is that I've had several people have this happen and come to me. I've had it happen myself. The tailbone pain. I actually had it happen after somebody in my life actually wrote this really, really, really nasty, very shocking letter about me that it was not at all true, nothing I could do about it. And I was so shocked by it that I literally felt like somebody had booted me in the butt, like literally kicked me in the butt. And the next day I had tailbone pain. And I've had this happen multiple times. So if you have tailbone pain, it's usually that you feel like you're being kicked in the butt by people around you, a group around you, or life itself, basically. I also had an interesting one where a woman was, she kept having like heel pain at the back of her heel. And the image I got on her when she was talking about it was like she was like stomping it was her left foot, stomping her left foot into the ground like a little kid with, there was like mad. And sure enough, she said, yeah, that's exactly what she was basically energetically doing. Her mom was frustrating the heck out of her. And she was literally like, like the little kid in her was responding. And now her heel was hurting at the back of that heel right as she was trying to move forward. So that's a really interesting one. So make sure and bones are always support. So bones anywhere in the body are always support. And they always have a station one component. If it's bones, like you have a broken bone somewhere else, that shows more. So I'll give an example. There was a client I worked with a few years ago, and she was just carrying too much for her whole family. She was a caretaker for like 4 people. She kept saying, I need a break. I need a break. I need a break. And I was like, listen, I don't think we have to listen to every single word that comes out of our mouths, but we got to find a way for you to get a break that's not a break, because and a couple weeks later, she fell off a ladder, like painting the ceiling, and she broke her arm. So it did have to do with her not feeling supported, so station one, but it also was her arm, which we'll talk about in a minute, station 4, which was how she was emotionally feeling at the time, which was very abandoned. Okay. Okay, station 2. Station 2, as I call it, is the energy of individual dynamics and creative power. What does that mean? That means when we're in a group, we were just talking about our individual relationship to the group. So we have a role we play in a group. There's a group dynamic. You might have been the scapegoat of the family. You might have been the golden child. There's all these dynamics. Now, within the group, right, we have one-on-one relationships with everybody in the group. You're going to have a different relationship with mom than you do dad, sister, brother, cousin, etc., right? So it has to do with our one-on-one relationships. This is where you will see, if you have unconscious underlying beliefs here that are limiting, problematic, whatever, this is where you'll see that pattern of having the same toxic boss again and again. You can move from company to company to company, and you basically have the same exact boss. Or you can date or marry people, and each time, I am not ever having that happen again, and you pick the exact same kind of person again. And it's because of station 2 and those underlying beliefs being stuck in there, being again coded unconsciously, oftentimes from childhood. So not your like conscious problem, but you can fix it. It also has to do with your ability to feel like you can creatively birth things. So I will see people that'll have issues here that might be entrepreneurs, writers, artists, or people that are dealing with fertility issues, right? This is obviously like where we birth. We'll talk about that in a second. So as you can see here, station 2 is dealing with our lower vertebrae, pelvis, all of our sexual organs, the bladder, large intestines, hips, and buttocks. So again, this is literally where we create from, whether you're male or female. This is how we create life. So I have had lots of people that had ovarian cysts, for instance, and it was all this blocked creative energy that maybe they'd been told that they were not a particularly great writer, or great artist or something. Usually they actually really were. It's usually from something else, that jealousy or something else that came up. And so they will have ovarian cysts that'll cause them problems. I have seen tons of people, tons of women with fibroids. And fibroids are kind of like, I always get this image of like little BBs that are being shot in that person. And it usually has to do with little wounds against that woman from a male in their life that is like against who they are as a female, as a woman, as a partner. Okay. So if you have issues there, that's what you might be dealing with. Now we're going to go to station 3. Station 3 is what I call the force of positive self-image. This is the core of our body. This is the core of our life and our identity. So where we had individual relationship to group in station 1, individual relationship to another individual in station 2, now this is in our individual relationship to ourselves. Obviously, this station can be fraught with all kinds of issues because self-esteem, self-confidence, feeling like you're allowed to protect yourself, feeling like you're allowed to listen to your gut instinct. If you were a very intuitive or hypervigilant kid and you had a really strong gut instinct and people around you wouldn't listen to you, I have seen so many empaths and so many intuitive people who had like stomach aches and things like that because they were told to shut that down. And that was actually maybe such a strong thing for them. And so shutting it down actually makes them sick. So you will also see perfectionism show up here, identity issues. Who am I really in this world? Can I present who I truly am and be, excuse me, safe? And then let's show you the area of the body. This is, as I say, it is your core, literally your core of the body. It deals with your liver, pancreas, stomach, upper intestines, kidneys, adrenal, middle spine, gallbladder, and the core of the body. Now, the cool thing is here that a lot of the stuff that will show up here is extremely, extremely literal. Like when I deal with things with the pancreas, it usually has to do with somebody not being able to take in this or process the sweetness of life or feeling that life is too bitter. With the stomach, I had an issue when I was probably 24. And I was engaged to somebody I should not have been engaged to. And I knew that. I said yes and should have said no. And so I was like trying to figure out how to get out of it without hurting him, which was, difficult. And I also was working in a business where it was, as I say, very stressful. And I didn't feel like it was necessarily fully aligned with me or feeling safe. And all of a sudden I had ulcers. Stomach ulcers. They tested and it wasn't the bacterial kind, definitely stress oriented. And what it was, now I understand, is I was literally choosing to eat myself alive, eat away at myself, let this stuff eat away at me rather than speaking what I needed to speak and say what I needed to say and listen to myself. And I wasn't. I was actually also having acid reflux up here, which is eating away at my vocal cords. And so that's what it was. So it's really, again, very interesting how this can show up. Now, station 4, that's our emotional connection to life. So station 4 is, were you taught that you were too emotional? Were you taught that there were good or bad emotions? Were you taught you were a male and weren't allowed to express emotion? Or in a lot of families, even females were told, oh, your emotions don't count. You aren't allowed to feel those things, especially if you grew up in like a toxic or difficult family. What will show up here is, I'm so sorry, this repression. It'll be repressing of emotions or massive, like all of a sudden your emotions will come flying out. And it'll also oftentimes show, and you'll see, actually, let me show you that. I will see really specific issues within these body parts that are very related and will tell you exactly what's going on emotionally. So you can see there, heart, circulatory system, your lungs, your rib cage, respiratory system, your breasts, shoulders, collarbones, arms, wrists, hands and fingers, your thymus gland, which not too many people have issues with, but sometimes thoracic spine. And I deal with a lot of people with breast cancer, breast cysts, those sorts of things. And that always has to do with unexpressed grief and betrayal. Usually, the side of the breast that it shows up in will usually tell you a lot about what's going on and who that is, where that's stuck. With heart and circulatory system, I've had some really interesting ones where there was like a blockage in the aorta that takes the blood out of the heart, and that is you are blocking your ability to express your emotions and connect emotionally with people. And if it's blocking on the way into the heart, it tends to be that you're blocking and not accepting, not receiving positive emotions from other people. I've had some really interesting heart ones, actually, and circulatory system ones. But won't go into all of those. I've had people whose hands were like stuck like this, and that is, again, gripping. We talked about muscle spasms before, gripping, and fear, like I can't grab onto things. I'm literally stuck. All right, let's get on to station 5 because I want to keep us on track and not go too long here. Okay, station 5 has to do with willpower, self-expression. It's literally your center of expression and communication. I see people who really struggle with procrastination, has to do with unconscious beliefs and traumas, usually not due to anything wrong with you. Some massive self-criticism. So how you talk to yourself, how you express yourself in every possible way, word, thought, and action. Fear of speaking up, speaking in public. Those may sort of keep you in that kind of thing. So if we look, this has to do with like all of this section. So we're dealing with, actually down here, not up in the sinuses, down here. So throat, your trachea, your thyroid. Thyroid is an interesting one. When I see people with hypothyroid, every single time I get an image of like this big military boot that's stepping down on them and squashing their voice. That they are literally being like squashed down in how they need to express themselves. So that's a really interesting one. Mouth, jaw, teeth. I had a woman some years ago who came to me because she had more cold sores than I have ever seen in my whole life. She had them all over the inside of her mouth, and she was about to get married within 2 weeks. Be real bad to have to get married with all those cold sores. It was awful. And what the issue was is her mother-in-law was absolutely crazy, and she was trying to not, she was like, much like ulcers, she was like eating away at herself and was just sore and raw from all these comments from the mother-in-law that she felt like she could not stand up for herself about what she wanted in the wedding or other things that were going on. Really, really interesting one. Very poor thing. I felt so bad for. Esophagus, your vocal cords. Oh, so many things show up on the vocal cords. Like if you have a little like node on the vocal cords, usually what you're looking at is like a little bit of a wound as to somebody has wounded you in the way that you sing or speak, or how you express yourself. Skin of the throat and the jaw and your vertebrae of the neck. I'll see lots of people like all of a sudden they won't be able to turn their neck one way or another. And depending on the direction you don't want to turn, it's like you have something you want to say to somebody and you don't want to even turn, look at them, consider what they have to say, or actually speak that out. Okay? And those are sort of generalities, but station 6, it's up in here, right? Right in your face, right? Eyes, sinuses, nose. This is a lot of times, if you're familiar, like we call that the third eye, it is our mental intuition. There's our power of mental creativity. So that's problem solving. That's thinking we're smart enough to be able to figure things out. A lot of people were told they weren't very smart and they can have a lot of issues show up here. It's being able to think that you can see forward in a positive way, that you can see ahead of yourself and figure out your path forward. It's decision making, micromanagement, being really afraid of change will show up in station 6. And I see a lot of people, particularly men that are really intuitive, but have been told that intuition is like woo-woo, which it's not. We could go down a whole scientific path on that one. But I've been told that it's intuitive. And they will show up to me with migraines. And why? Because their intuition's trying to come through, and it's like they're trying to squash it down. And that tension, they may have a solution ahead of them they see or they know, and they don't want to put it in place because it's like intuition or this is woo woo or I can't, it's not logical. So a lot of times that will show up there as well. Now, station 6 will be the kind of like body issues, brain, eyes, ears, nose, and sinuses. If you get a lot of sinus infections or if you have a sinus infection, it is literally feeling completely stuck by something right in front of your face. It's going to be somebody really close to you or a situation right in front of your face. The entire head and the skin of the nose and cheeks and forehead. So it's really interesting too, because like with ears, I can usually tell, especially in married couples, like if I can usually tell if one ear is going out, they'll oftentimes people will lose like the hearing in one ear, start to lose the hearing in one ear, and the ear that it's worse in will tell you usually quite a bit about their relationship, like what they don't want to hear. And they feel like maybe they're being, nagged or yelled at or whatever. Eyes, I've had some really interesting ones where like once a friend of mine, apparently at 19, had two detached retinas at the same time. And I was like, well, what literally made you feel like the blinds were pulled over you? Like you literally couldn't see your future anymore. The blinds were actually pulled down and you could not see forward. And sure enough, he'd been a trust fund kid. Somebody did something wrong with the trust fund and they shut it down and he was no longer a trust fund kid. And he just lived that way his whole life. And suddenly he literally, the blinds had been pulled over his eyes. He didn't know what he was looking at as in the future. Really, really interesting. Again, at 19, pretty wild time to do that, have a detached retina. Station 7 is what I call the energy of a higher power. That is our connection to the web of life. So whatever you want to call higher power does not matter to me. God, Allah, Goddess, it doesn't matter. Whatever your definition, however you connect with the idea of a spiritual higher power, a creative force, fine with me. I call it the source just because that's easy and you can put any word on it you want to. It is about your sense of having a life purpose and being able to express your life purpose in this world as well. A lot of times what I will see in this particular area is that you are feeling totally disconnected from any sense of purpose, or you are feeling like you are completely disconnected from any kind of real connection to your spirituality, to that sense of there is more to this world. And that will show up in really interesting ways. I should have put a couple more things down here, but generally, Station 7 deals with systemic issues. Again, because it's like that web of life. So if you can imagine, I don't know if you saw The Matrix, but it's that idea of like our connection within that code and how we're actually connected to everything through frequency. That is the basic thing. When that breaks down, then that usually shows us something. We don't feel protected. We don't feel connected. So the systemic issues, muscular system, nervous system, skin of the entire body, scalp and hair, and the top of the head, especially if you're just like not connected at all. Also, what you'll see, and I forgot to put that there, is all over fatigue or total burnout that doesn't have a medical cause, or like all over like really deep depression or depression that does not have a medical cause. And that is, again, because of being disconnected from any kind of sense of a higher reality or a higher purpose in your life. And so that's really interesting. So that's what you're going to be looking at in those. In the different ways that it shows up. So for instance, I worked with somebody with Parkinson's some years ago, and what was it was a total breakdown in what he felt like was his larger connection and contribution to life. His brother and he had a business. His brother decided he wanted to sell it. This man did not want to sell it, but did. And he lost like that sense of connection and purpose from there. Right after that, he was diagnosed with all of a sudden Parkinson's. And it was interesting because the way it showed up for him, it was all about him not feeling stable moving forward. And in his case, his knees would buckle. That was one of the ways, that was one of his particular symptoms. And Parkinson's can show up in lots of different ways. And he also started to have problems with being able to speak. And that was largely because his wife wouldn't listen to him, quite honestly. What he really wanted to do, was really passionate about art, and he was really passionate about theater, and he wanted to try out for community theater, and she was just not listening whatsoever. So interesting ways that those show up. Okay, step 6. So if you happen to have your flow factor test results, you want to go to those. The flow factor is available on my website. I will put that up. I can't right now see the chat, so I'll put it up in the chat in 1 second. It's just at my website, tarameyer.robson.com. If you have not taken it, I highly recommend that you do. What it will do, it's about 10 minutes, and it'll pinpoint for you in which of these stations we just talked about you have unconscious beliefs that are doing this, tuning you into sort of repeat negative experiences, pain, or disease. It's going to give you a really specific way of understanding it, and you're going to know exactly where you need to work. I'm not good on wasted time. I like effective things. I like efficient things. And when I was developing the flow method and my flow factor assessments, one of the things I noticed is you'd read some like great book, right? Self-help book or, quantum physics book or whatever. And it's like, this is all awesome, but how do I apply this to me specifically? And that's what the flow factor does. It literally will tell you where you need to go. You go to the top area that is the what I call most out of the flow, and you work there first, because if we work on our biggest problem area first and we don't waste time places we don't need, you see the biggest differences quickly. So please do go take the flow factor if you haven't taken it, but it will help you hone in on that specific issue. Step 7, this is sort of the final part. You just look at all the information and you're gonna put it all together. And with that, with all the steps being put together, you will have a really specific message from your body about what's off in your mind, your body, and your life. And hopefully you can kind of see how that snaps together. So what now? Hopefully this has given you a good baseline to understand that this can be very literal for you. What your body's trying to tell you can be translated. You can listen and you can use that to start to heal. Now, obviously, I couldn't give you everything in this 1 hour session. I just can't. So that's where Decode Your Disease comes in. And if you've been on my email list, you probably heard me talking about it. The main thing, the reason I created Decode Your Disease is to take you through these exact steps. But at each step, we will stop and I will translate for you exactly what each step is telling you. Whether it's a symptom, whether it's a timing, whether it's color, whether it's the kind of, the way it's showing up, whatever it is, we're going to stop at each one. And within about the first 2 hours, we should have you having the specific message from your body about what's off in your mind, body, and life. Very specifically. After that, you will take something I call the reality type test. What that does is it assesses how you learn the best, the most effectively. So what senses do you tend to use? Are you visual? Are you auditory? Do you have taste oriented? I have a lot of chefs that I've worked with that are very taste oriented, right? There's like a taste of love and there's a taste of happiness and that kind of thing. And then we develop a completely personalized, specific healing blueprint for you. That's about a 40-day program that uses your strongest senses, uses the translation that we have gotten, and uses very specific action steps for you that are specific to exactly what you need to be able to heal your mind, body, and life. And this is all within less than a morning. So what I wanted to do is, I know so many people have been struggling for so freaking long trying to figure this out. I wanted to give people, hey, I want this answer and I want to know what to do with it. That's what this is designed to do. Now, because I know tons of people have literally been through so much and they have paid tons of money to things that have not worked, or you've not gotten results and people are not, whatever, I do not want that. My deal is that I have an ironclad guarantee. Either I get you your specific message within that 3 hours, really specific, which again, I can usually do it in 1 to 3 minutes, but because we're doing it in a group, I have to do step by step. Either I get that message. If I don't, if somehow I'm not getting that message and you need more help, I will work with you personally for 30 days until we get it. If somehow I don't get that message for you within 30 days, it has never happened. I can promise you that it's never even happened that I haven't gotten the message in 3 hours, but regardless, if that happens somehow, if you're the one person that it happens, I will absolutely refund your money. Like without any question whatsoever, because I do not want you paying for something that doesn't work. So that is my guarantee. That is how I feel. And again, I really love people that are coming to me with questions, with your own thoughts. And I love working with people individually. That's what we're doing in this group. It's a very small group, 10 people maximum for each Decode Your Disease sort of pod. So we keep it really small. And again, anything you share in the group is obviously confidential. So that's Decode Your Disease. I'm going to stop sharing real quick because actually I got to, oh my goodness, I have to roll over to my business soul gift business building call. So people are going to be looking for me. Oops, where's my, oh shoot. Hang on one second, guys. Got to go pick the, I'll go get the, if you guys have questions, please also email me at Tara@TaraMeyer-Robson.com. I will get you the link. Here you go. Sorry, I had it, I swear. All right. You know, sometimes you just do what you can. Okay, that's the link for Decode Your Disease. I'm doing, if you happen to be in Denver, I'm doing a one live this Saturday from 9 to noon. If you're not in Denver and need to do it online, that is great. It works both ways, no problem. Just this time I had so many people from Denver who wanted to do it. I decided to do a live one. If you are not in Denver, then I will be doing a Decode Your Disease on June 6th, also a Saturday morning. And if you're on Tara Meyer-Robson, you can also take the flow factor test. That's my thing. And if you have any questions, send them to me. This is my Robson. There we go. This is my email as well. So you guys grab that. I will also be sending all of you the replay. I would love to hear from you. I'm really hoping that this made a difference, that you kind of got an idea of like what is going on and what can I do. I know we might have not answered every question, but hopefully we got you in like sort of on the path. And I would absolutely love it if you decide to join Decode Your Disease. This is what I am passionate about doing. You can probably tell. This is all I do all day long. I cannot help it. I love it. I love teaching it. It does seem like magic because you can get that message in 1 to 3 minutes usually and be able to do something with it. But it's not magic. I can actually just teach you how to understand it, and you can use it for the rest of your life. But most importantly, you can use it with what's going on right this very minute. Thank you so much for being here with me. Please send me notes or questions, and please consider getting into Decode Your Disease. As I say, I have a complete guarantee. I will get you results, or you absolutely get your money back, no problem. I don't want people wasting more money on stuff that doesn't work. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much. And please share if you know somebody that this work would be helpful for. It is enormously helpful to me to get it out. My main thing is I just want to help heal the world and bring power back to people and make this world a better place. So if you have somebody that this would work for, please do share it. All right. Sending everybody tons of love. Look forward to seeing you hopefully decode, or please send me a note. I love talking to people. See you soon.